Original. Так, прям. Не знаю. Мене зненацька сьогодні відряджають на Херсонщину. Урочисто закладати цеглину в фундамент товаришів Чорнарі.
Друзья, ну я думаю, мы будем начинать. Всем доброе утро. Начинаем мы практически вовремя.
So we are going to start our press conference, and we will be joined by our colleagues. I'm Ruslan Kalinin, and I am head of All Ukrainian Association of IDPs. I would like to thank our speakers who agreed to take part in this panel, and we thank all those who helped to organize this panel. This is the team of our association, and also Pavel Rozenko, who is not present today, but I know that we have his representatives here, and also Development, Rozvitok organization, the representatives of the ministries, MPs, and our moderator, Bogdan Butkevych, and Sergiy Garmash will attend us during the next session of this meeting. So, few words about why we gathered here today. 3 years ago, because of the occupation of the Crimea, we had first IDPs in our country, and each year the number of IDPs increased and their problems became more difficult. The problems connected with adaptation to a new environment. And we cannot say that in these 3 years their problems were solved. Only recently the state started actively to solve their problems, and the Ministry of Temporarily Occupied Territories was created, and 6 ministries worked to solve the problems of IDPs, and also the state program was adopted. An international organization helped. Верховна Rada adopts each month new draft laws concerning IDPs. And according to the information provided by the Ministry of Social Policy, 1.5 million people are registered as IDPs. And these people, unfortunately, do not see efficient work of the state. And why it is so, we are going to discuss this during our panel session. All Ukrainian Association of IDPs gathered the main players, those who carry out policy concerning IDPs, MPs, and civil society activists. Today we are going to discuss the issues of housing, employment, state program, and the conclusion of our discussion should be a roadmap of actions, the tasks that should be completed, that should be prioritized for the governmental bodies. There's a roadmap for those who deal with the issues of IDPs. So we have 2 panels, and we have 5-7 minutes per speaker. Thank you, and we start. Good afternoon, I'm Bogdan Butkevych, and I'm the moderator of the first panel of our today's discussion, and it is about government program on IDPs that was adopted, and from the start it was criticized a lot. They criticized the idea that they didn't identify clearly how all these wonderful things are going to be financed. And I would like to introduce our speakers with whom we are going to discuss these issues. Mustafa, Nayyem MP, and also Deputy Minister on temporarily occupied territories, MP Nemyrya, and a group of influence, Durneva, Executive Director of Public Holding Group of Influence. And we will give the floor to Mr. Yefimov, and he will be the first one to speak. So we have strict time limitations, so you have 5 minutes. Good afternoon, everyone. I deal with several issues concerning IDP problems, and we are going to discuss many issues, housing and other issues. And I would like to focus the attention on one message that is of importance, that today there are a lot of ministries that deal with the issues of IDPs, but we should understand that today IDPs are not considered in the budget. So you know that there is some registration of IDPs by the by the Ministry of Social Protection, and they provide some benefits to the IDPs, but the budget of the country, 1.5 million are lost there. So I would like to focus my presentation and to focus on this problem in my presentation. So today we have such a map, migration from the occupied territories, and here we may see 1,696,000. This is according to the Ministry of Social Policy, and in different oblasts, we see the distribution of this people throughout Ukraine, where they are in the territory of Ukraine. So today we are speaking about people who fled the occupied territories of Donetsk and Lugansk oblasts. And we see that the main oblasts who host these people are Donetsk, Lugansk, Dnipropetrovsk, Kharkiv, Zaporizhzhia Oblast. And also the next slide. The next slide shows the structure in percentage. Donetsk Oblast got 36% of overall number, Zaporizhzhia Oblast 62%, Lugansk 17%, Kharkiv 11%, and Kyiv 8.61% from the overall number of IDPs. If we look and consider the burden on oblasts, we will see the ratio between IDPs and people who reside there permanently. So there are 4 oblasts where this load is too heavy, 31% in Donetsk Oblast. So we see that there is population of 1,989,000, so 31% added. And Lugansk Oblast is worse, 40%, Kharkiv and Zaporizhzhia 6.9, 6.0. So, and Dnipropetrovsk Oblast is lacking on the slide, but there are many IDPs there. So, if we see the number of IDPs that are in other oblasts, but their number is minor, so they do not influence a lot on the budget in these regions. But speaking about these 5 regions were identified, we see a big load on healthcare, education, schools, kindergartens, a big burden, because these people, they should be housed, and these people, they should be employed. That's why these regions, they have this big load, this great burden, because they should support these IDPs who stay there. And because of this, we need to analyze the situation. I would like to show it by example of Donetsk Oblast, the influence of IDPs on the budget of Donetsk Oblast. Because many IDPs who are in Donetsk Oblast, they are paid salaries there, and the taxes are paid, and the budgets of these oblasts, they have additional money. So they say that you have more money in the local budget, that's why you can spend it for different purposes. And I would like to show that taking into account that these citizens, they are not included in the statistical data, the Ministry of Finance, they take the money in reverse payments from Donetsk, Lugansk, and that the example of this oblast, that will be 300 million hryvnia. So people pay taxes, those who work. So this provides plus, but then catastrophic minus, because this money will be taken away as reverse payments. So if there are more people added,
людей обслужить, так как эти люди не учтены в численном составе этих областей, то получается, что и медичная субвенция на этих людей не положена. Исходя из этих двух фактов, что медицина не помогает и не профинансирована государством, а также исходя из того, что происходит изъятие денег из местных бюджетов за счет реверсной дотации, я проанализировал ситуацию и пришел к выводу вот за последние 4 месяца о том, что
I came to the conclusion that today the IDPs they are not registered, they are not included into statistics. Most of the central executive bodies use the data of the state statistical committee. That's the last. According to that, 42,760,000 people without the Crimea. That's the data of the statistical committee. So in 2001 we had the latest.
Плюс-минус мигранты уехали-выехали.
There were some migrants that's because 42,760,000 people. That's the data of the State Statistics Committee. They do not include this 1+ million people who are IDPs. The budget of the country is distorted. If there was a chance for the ministry to pay attention to that and to give the task to the State Statistics Committee to include the IDPs when they are providing the data to all the executive authorities. Today we don't include this data into our state statistics. Sorry for this long introduction. That was Maksym Yefimov, the MP from Petro Poroshenko bloc, and Vitaliy Muschynin joined us, the Deputy Minister of Social Policy of Ukraine. Maybe you would like to answer this question, Mr. Tuka? I would like to mention that practically everything that you've heard, myself personally and the ministry agrees with all that. I hope that objective data on the numbers of IDPs will be made public on the 8th of December. The ministry will report on the 8th of December. and that is after the pilot testing of the electronic database is completed. For us, for the ministry, which has to develop the state policy to address the problems of these people, we are not interested in numbers. We are interested, but that's not the only thing we need to know. There are many other things that we need to know, but unfortunately, the existing database does not correspond to the criteria that our ministry needs. And we just have different tasks with the Ministry of Social Policy. We're interested in how these people divided into rural or urban population, how many male and female population is there. Unfortunately, this problem may become the chronic problem. As soon as I returned from Lugansk to Kyiv, I received the opinion of international experts, and they say that if the situation doesn't change within 2-3 years, then most people who are IDPs in any country of the world, they are assimilated in the new areas, and they have no desire to go back to their old homes after the situation is normalized. And according to the latest sociological surveys, which we received from the Kyiv Institute, Scientific Research Institute, about 75-80% of the people answered negatively to the question whether they want to go back to the non-controlled territories after they are liberated. So this problem from short-term grew into the national social program. I spent a lot of time talking to international experts on how in the world such problems and such challenges are addressed. If we are talking just about the most painful issue, providing housing and jobs, I will not be just trying to convince you that tomorrow we'll be able to resolve that situation, but I will tell you the truth. In the world, there are no examples of positive resolution of such challenges in short term. No positive models. What are the models? In Germany, for example, for the IDPs now, they're building housing, but unlike in Ukraine, I will not be comparing economic potentials. These are things which cannot be compared, but I'm talking about the approach to addressing the problem. What is built in Germany is not given to the as ownership. People just rent it and pay for rent. But this program is the problem when 2/3 of the rent is paid by the state, but 1/3 by the IDPs themselves. You have 1 minute, then I will complete, because this is the problem which I can talk till the morning. Then if you have questions, I will answer. And I immediately have a small proposal. Klujev from Apora published recently an interesting information that now the data of the single register of IDPs are used by private companies, and the sort of Ministry of Finance is calling in order to congratulate with the new year, and then collectors come to people. And that's true when we are talking about debts which were taken from the loans which were taken from the large banks. Who could comment on that now? Tetyana Durneva. Yes, this is absolutely correct information, because on the website Prozora and the website of the public procurement, you can see the results of the tenders that the Ministry of Finance organized. There were two tenders, the tenders on doing physical and telephone verification. For telephone verification, 999,000 hryvnias, almost 1 million hryvnias were allocated, and a little less for physical verification. According to both tenders were won by the collectors company Delta M. If you look into the Google what is the company, you will see the negative image of this company. The website of Delta M company in Ukraine is identical to the website of Delta M site in Russia. This collector's company, as a rule, is trying to get debts from people, persecutes people, and exercises psychological pressure. What we received together with Alexander Klujev, these were phone calls from the citizens of Ukraine. They complained that unknown companies called their personal mobile phones. They have all the personal information. We have recordings of these. The legends are different, but in every legend, the operator says that it's connected to the Ministry of Finance. One thing, they say, we call from the social fund and we would like to congratulate the IDPs or the people, pensioners, with the new year. Please tell us where you live. If a person doesn't tell, then they say that the person will not be receiving any social payments. This company will transfer this data to the Ministry of Finance. Another legend is that that's the social survey. In one conversation, we had that that's Delta M company, and we are working according to the order of the Ministry of Finance. So we have no doubts that this is the Delta M company, and that the but that was not the work that was ordered by the Ministry of Finance. So what are the conditions, the terms of the tender, and what are the technical specifications? According to the technical specifications, the Ministry of Finance transfers the personal data of IDPs to this company. It's according to the terms of the tender. If you look at the tender, physical verification, it's about some registered physical persons which will be transferred. The information, its name, surname, and first name, surname, passport date, identification code, family status, employment, and other information. As to telephone verification, that's 100% that is the information that operators have. Delta M can involve the third party to execute this task. So the question is where this data goes after the Ministry of this personal data of the citizens of Ukraine can go further, and that is not controlled. Even if we look at the law on the protection of personal data, where it talks about deletion of personal data, we live in the 21st century. We understand that the data is not deleted. Once the data is transferred once, then this absolutely everyone will have access to that.
The question is, if we are speaking about verification, that costs millions to the state, telephone verification with the view to check information people provided when they get social benefits. So how does this verification provide understanding whether this person is alive and whether this person has grounds to give social services, any social service, maybe pensions and other services? And we have territories that are not controlled by the state, and the state wants to know whether people are really alive there, because the Minister of Finance will attend second session of our panel. We have only one settlement in non-controlled territories, the Kuchevsk. There are 30,000 people. Not all these people are registered as IDP. This is the only settlement where we cannot phone. Telephone verification does not provide data, proper data. Those people who are registered as IDPs, if these are elderly, they provide the mobile phone of their children, grandchildren, and you cannot verify that this is this person. But this is a secondary issue. We should speak about national interests. We should say that those people who were forced to flee the zone of conflict, they are under threat. They were betrayed by the state. If information about my registration and place of residence is known to everyone, so maybe some people can just come and rob my flat or just to live in my flat. I would like to state one more time, because we are speaking about the spectrum of the problems IDP face. So this is the right for speech, and in Ukraine we have local elections, territorial communities elections, and 4% of the electorate does not have the right to vote because IDPs are not the members of the territorial communities in which they live for 3 years, and this issue remains unsolved. That's why we started the campaign to protect the voting rights of the IDPs and to study focus groups together with stakeholders in order to break this vicious circle when we are trying to solve the issues before elections. But this issue should be resolved now, because the right to vote and the recognition of these people as members of the community, this is the right way to integrate these people into community and to establish the protection of their rights. In draft budget 2017, there are two entries, 3.2 million hryvnias to provide social help, housing, according to provision 505, and I remind you that people who are able to be employed can get 400 hryvnias, and people with disability can get a minimum living wage. So it's about 1,000, and the figures. And those who are employed, they can get only 400. So the minimum salary, you know, that it changed, and inflation was not included. And in 2015, we had about 700,000, and we had some more than 700,000, and now we have more people and less money. And also the support, the pilot project, 20 million hryvnias are in the budget for employing the IDP, and this project will be in Lviv, Poltavsk, and Kharkiv Oblast. These are for vulnerable families and IDPs. This is the only change that happened, and We do not have comprehensive state project for IDP. It was adopted in 2015, and now we do not have money for this program. Thank you. So some new deputies arrived, and Mr. Taruta joined us. So who wants to continue? Maybe Mustafa Nayyem is going to continue. Mustafa Nayyem, MP bloc, Poroshenko bloc. I would like to say that no one helps IDPs on the level of state in order to protect their rights, the expenditures for IDPs and their social support. If we compare with other areas in any field, in police, in Ministry of Finance, in state management, there are entities who protect their rights while in the course of the forming of the budget. And in the Verkhovna Rada, we have different groups that get united to promote some draft laws, but there are no such MPs who protect the rights of IDPs and who have strategic view on these problems. And also we lack these people in the government. And the Ministry of Occupied on occupied territory, temporarily occupied territories, I would like to say some good words about them, because they lack the budget. Then they didn't have proper staff because money was lacking. And then they got the money from IMF, but the Ministry of Finance does not allow them to spend this money. But this ministry, they could represent the rights of IDPs and to defend them. And in the territories occupied, the territories of Donetsk and Lugansk Oblast, they had primaries there. And people took part in these elections. They voted, and there were 400,000 such people there in 2 oblasts. So these are people who trust the power there. So, and if we compare the figures, 1.7 million people, so we see that we have huge potential of people who can promote after the occupation, and even now in the territories of those occupied territories, they can promote the ideas of Ukrainian state, and that is simpler than to just promote some mottos or just walking with a flag. If these people don't get proper financing to cover their living expenses and do not have good attitude and representation, so they bring the signal there. As to social security, the figures were mentioned. 400 for those, 800 for those who work is only 400, and for disabled it is 949 hryvnias, and for 443 for those who are employed. So if there are 3 children in the family, if a person can work and if he is not employed for 2 months, this person can only have half of the sum. So if there are 3 children in the family, they get less than 2,400 hryvnias, and the minimum salary will be increased, so they won't get even half of minimum per person. And the level of unemployment is high, and these people, they cannot get employment, and we have discrimination in the country. You can
ask people who came here who cannot find the housing. The biggest, the main question which people ask when someone wants to rent an apartment is, where are you from? Donetsk and Lugansk region is the result of our social policy, our social propaganda, that these are our people. More than that, if you ask me, and I know what's happening on the controlled territories. These are people who made their choice to come here, and in many cases these are not people who came here not just because they have no place to live. Many people don't want to live there. They believe that they want to live in Ukraine, and we discriminate such people who want to live in Ukraine. Many people, we don't have any statistical data, but how many people who arrived from occupied territories who came to the central and western part and had to go back to the territories which are close to the line of contact. They went there not because conditions are there, but because they feel discrimination. I will be open now talking about the regulations which we have as to the free housing. Even what was proposed in many cases is done so that even the families which have disabled people or minor children, they cannot use this. As to registration, we all understand that the official data that we receive do not correspond to the reality. I don't think you need to talk about that a lot, but if you take cities especially, which are towns which are close to the line of contact, there's no statistical data there. In many towns, the population doubled. And unfortunately, our citizens are using that situation. If you look at the cost of housing in Kramatorsk or in some other towns, then in Kyiv you will find the cheaper housing, but understanding that there are no jobs there, to say nothing about social maintenance. Sorry, Mustafa, please finish up. And one more thing I would like to say. I believe that we need to systemically approach this issue, and maybe we addressed many MPs and we developed our group. I know that Mr. Taruta did a lot. I think that sooner or later we'll get to the situation when the system will have to be developed. And one more thing I would like to say. We are faced with mental problems of healthy people, but there is a part of the population which we do not pay attention at. These are children from 7 till 15 or till 20 is the audience which we can get civilizationally, mentally, via educational programs now. Last year 300 children, thanks to the ministry, thanks to the donors, we took to Kyiv, to a camp where they stayed together with children from Western Ukraine. You do not imagine what's happening with them. Many of them, when they were seeing people in uniform, they were crying. For them, a person in the uniform is the militiaman or serviceman. And when they go to Western Ukraine and they understand what's happening, then children from Western Ukraine understand that there are parts of the country where the war is going on. We have no programs for these children. We have just submitted the draft on privileges to those who can study on the territory of Ukraine, so that they have same rights as the IDPs, but this should be a wider program, and we addressed many ministries and agencies to allocate some camps, some bases. There are many of them in Ukraine where annually we can educate such children. And now you are saying that we are not helping these people. This is the question to the Ministry of Social Policy. As far as I understand, when this program was discussed, there was a lot of criticism that these are nice words, but no one understands how to get money to finance that. Now the Deputy Minister of Social Policy, Vitaliy Muschynin. First of all, I would like to clarify some figures. I would like to say that today we have 1,664,000, and this is practically 30,000 less than there was in the presentation. But today, thanks to the resolutions which were passed, the number of IDPs was reduced by 140,000. I can talk only in the Donetsk region. This figure is higher than 100,000 people. As to the general statistical data, there were 1,270,000 pensioners before the events of 2014. Now, about 1 million pensioners received their pensions. We have 870,000 pensioners who are on the controlled territory. We need to understand that the social payments, and that's the biggest issue, paying pensions to pensioners, that is related to the issue, paying to citizens who had to leave their permanent place of residence, and we need to pay to such citizens all social payments, including pensions, according to simplified procedure. So that should be done according to the electronic procedure. And there are citizens who have no status of the IDPs because they practically did not leave the place of their actual residence. And we are looking for the possibility how to pay social payments to such citizens. But I believe that this issue will not be regulated till we have Ukrainian authorities on non-controlled territories. In that period, almost 44 billion hryvnias were paid to pensioners who moved from Donetsk and Lugansk regions. As to payments for housing and rent of housing, that was the payment which was given to those who are IDPs. Now, when they gain this status, they have the possibility to receive all other social payments, including, if this is the family, a mother with 3 children, they can come for assistance. And 500 hryvnias are paid for a child after 6 years, and 250 hryvnias for a child who's younger than 6 years. And this family could come. So, and they can get another 1,500 hryvnias for children. As to leasing of housing, we need to put efforts to that without any legal company to execute the agreement on lease of housing should be made. This is the program which is in place today for IDPs. And I would like to say, as to the register, we launched this automated register, this new program on for the register of IDPs. So basically the work is going on, and the database will be filled in, and we will have a powerful analytical system soon. Today we have also settled by the decision of the Cabinet of Ministers the issue of registering IDPs who are participants of the ATO. But the city of Kyiv was not included into all these regions which you saw on this slide. In Kyiv, we have 200,000 more IDPs than in the Zaporizhzhia region. 1 minute. I will not take more of your time. I would like to mention that many times we came up with the proposal, and if there is a support, and there is a support of the Ministry on Occupied Territories, we prepared amendments to the resolution which regulates the payments for lease of housing for people with disabilities. We want to differentiate the amount of assistance for this category of people because their requirement in housing is different from requirement of housing of people who do not have disability. So the budget of 2017 includes only one type of assistance provided to IDPs, and that's 3,300,000 hryvnias. But in the beginning of 2014-2015, the number of IDPs families was 220,000. Today it's 180,000. And that is with 1,400,000 IDP families, which means that only every 10th family only comes for assistance. And now Grygoriy Nemyrya, the MP from Batkivschyna faction. I would like to thank the organizers of today's discussion. Basically, last week I was in Stanitsa Luganska and Luganska region in Shestya Zolota. Yesterday I came back from Berlin. And I have the meetings with the Federal Chancellor, and I have the impression as to Stanitsa Luganska and Lugansk region, they feel themselves left. There's no assistance from the government or central authorities. As to German government, I have the impression that the government of Germany is more concerned with the situation with Ukrainian IDPs. They are more concerned than the government of Ukraine. In Ukraine, we have no state strategy as to IDPs. Second, as the result, in Ukraine, there's no state policy on IDPs. As the result, we see inside the government minimum 2 ministries which have different opposing positions as to IDPs. The newly created ministry and the Ministry of Social Policy, but the governmental decisions are always take the side of the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Social Policy, who are conducting discrimination policy in regard to IDPs. I would call it the policy of sanctions. How could it be? Ukraine, which is the victim of aggression of Russian Federation, and Ukraine de facto introduces sanctions against its own citizens. I would like to emphasize that the figures which were quoted, they are true figures. The budget for 2017 has 100 million hryvnias less for IDPs than it was in the budget for 2015. Myself, as the head of the Committee on Human Rights, I sent a letter to the Prime Minister of Ukraine. You can read it on the website of the committee. As the head of the committee, I did not receive any reply as to the reasons why the budget for this year has 100 million less than the budget for 2015. In Donetsk Oblast, where I was with my colleagues in April this year, and in Lugansk region, they said neither the Vice Prime Minister Zenka, neither the Vice Prime Minister Kirilenko have never visited the Donetsk-Lugansk regions. Why do we need such Vice Prime Ministers once they are responsible for the sector and they have never visited the places where it is most difficult for people? It's not in Kyiv, but over there, close to the line of contact. I would like to state whatever the Deputy Minister of Social Policy says. I would like to see how he was answering questions when we were in Kramatorsk, when he promised that the database will start working in a few weeks and it's still in a pilot regime. I would like to see what he answers to a person who's responsible in Stanitsa Lugansk Regional Administration for putting the data to this database. And the person told me, I do not know what you're talking about, because people who had to install this software, they said, we will not go to you because we are afraid to do that. Again, I tell you, you were not there, I was there. You were not there, I was there. You need to go there. You will have time to reply. And this is absurd. We are observing the theater of absurd. There are deputies in two ministries which have absolutely opposite position as to IDPs. The Ministry on Occupied Territories and IDPs is basically following the idea supported by the Committee on Human Rights that IDPs is part of resolution of the problem. And the Ministry of Social Policy adheres to the policy that IDPs are a burden, and that's part of the problem, but not resolution of the problem. And the government, unfortunately, supports the position of the Ministry of Social Policy. Several times I was asking, and now I would like to publicly ask, why till now the resolutions, the resolutions have not been supported, and the resolutions contradict the Constitution of Ukraine. They contradict the law passed by the Parliament on the freedoms and rights of IDPs, which has the signs of discrimination and sanctions against IDPs. Why in the government and there are still the projects of bylaws similar to what was suggested by the pension fund, which is supported by the Ministry of Social Policy, to make IDPs to receive electronic certificates every 3 months to do physical verification, and why the government of Ukraine introduces de facto the policy of sanctions. And I would like to remind you, we're talking more about the forest than about human rights. One of the conditions of providing the second tranche of macro-financial assistance to Ukraine, which is 600 million euros, is respecting the rights of IDPs. and that first of all concerns social payments. And now, Georgiy Tuka will answer later. Now, Sergiy Tuka, ex-governor of Donetsk region. I just wanted to add, a lot has been said, but let's not criticize, let us set tasks, each one for ourselves. We understand that there are some issues. The main one is social payments. The second one, which is so important, is the right to vote. And the third is to those so that the crossing of this checkpoint should be improved, and the plan for restoration of Donbass. Talking about the first one, it's the task of the new ministry, and Mr. Tuka is doing a lot, and our task is to help him so that the main ones are not the Ministry of Finance and the Ministry of Social Policy, but the Ministry on Occupied Territories. And I believe that this refers to MPs who are taking care of Donbass and the public, which is very active today. And I believe that we will succeed in that because there is an initiative. I remember how they did not want to include into the budget the financing of this ministry, but we managed to do so that the money is allocated. And our task now is the ministry should start working, and we need to have experts there who really care about Donbass's problems. One example, there was this similar problem with the electronic database on crossing the checkpoints, and then some NGO, Donbass Source and others came to me, and we financed it, and we made a new web platform, and these issues have been resolved. Now there's a possibility to look online, to introduce changes, and that was a huge problem, but we resolved it. As to the right for vote or segregation, and that is what has been mentioned, that's awful, that's awful. And there are representatives of every faction here and political forces which today are trying to change it. If we together get united and everyone says, like Petro Poroshenko, look, are you for or against? If you are against, we'll be discussing it at all the panels. And so with every faction, because they, the leaders are making their PR, but they give different instructions. I understand that neither Nayyem nor Leshchenko nor other 10 MPs could convince, but it is important to have a public position as to this or that faction. We were trying to organize a commission in December 2014, but it was blocked. It was blocked by BPP faction. We failed to do it, and now, unfortunately, in our parliament, there's no platform which institutionally would be working on the problems of Donbass, so that they don't ignore Mr. Nemyrya when he addresses the government. But together we are the force, and if we accumulate our energy, we will achieve success, and we will help IDPs, and we will help the new ministry. Thank you. Thank you. We don't have much time left, but I believe that Mr. Tuka would like to answer, and then we will have time for one. These were not, whatever you call it. Frankly speaking, I do not agree with the assessment of interrelations that we have between our ministries. We just have different tasks. In some issues, maybe we have some different opinions, but I don't think you made me like a white dove of peace. Has the ministry came to you to get improvement on the introducing amendments to the resolutions? No. That was the mistake, but it's not about that. I would like to mention one more time, and that is just for objectivity. The example was given of Stanitsa Luganska. I know this town very well. I visited it many times. Many times I was there. The children institutions, schools were restored. The hospitals, housing were repaired, restored. But at the same time, believe me, it was very unpleasant, to put it tolerantly, when people would accuse me that it is myself who invented how to organize the second Chechnya, how to get the budgetary money. When the money is laundered at the red line, they sort of restore, then they write it off, they sort of ruin it. But first of all, these accusations were coming from the IDPs from Lugansk region. They came to Kyiv, and they were do not want to go to Stanitsa to talk to people in what conditions they live, but sitting in Kyiv, they talk about some nonsenses, the state policy, and I'm convinced in that, because I lived on that land, will be about restoring children's schools, kindergartens, as many times as we need, till our children live there, even if those enemies shell every day we will be restoring windows, roofs. If the parents do not want to take children out of, they will be taking care of children, hospitals and houses. Maybe Mr. Muschynin would like to say something. I will try to answer some questions that were asked. First of all, that's about the refusal of the experts from the Ministry of Social Policy to go to the region where there is the danger for life. This is the information. I was asked about that at the meeting that we had this month in Severodonetsk. I can tell you one thing. I had no information then, and I said that when I come back, I will find it out, and I will share this information. But according to the data of the head of the department of this district, I have the written explanation. That was happening back in 2014 when people went to organize the program of housing subsidies, and they were warned that it is dangerous. They went there, but in 2 weeks. But this is the reason to accuse someone. And we agreed that the committee, we will provide this. I'm talking about the database. It's not about 2014. But answering your question, that's the only case. There were no other cases when people wouldn't refuse to go there. Just his visit was delayed. As to the resolution 505 that introduced amendments into another resolution, I would like to say one thing. This resolution was approved by the Minister on Occupied Territories, Mr. Chernyshov. It was approved by our Minister. 2 ministers were present at the meeting of the Council of National Security, and all that was agreed on. And when that was submitted to the Cabinet of Ministers, I came to Minister on occupied territories, and he said that he will support me at the meeting of the Cabinet of Ministers. I cannot say why this resolution did not get to the deputy minister. I know one thing, that the position was approved by two ministries. We're talking about different resolutions. Unfortunately, the time is over. We probably would need several days for such a discussion. But please introduce yourself. Sokolenko Людмила, Lugansk Press Club. I would like to address from all our IDPs to MPs. You are passing many laws, but we have a very big thing to you. You do not control. There's no parliamentary control over these laws. I will give you an example of two laws. The first law, number 85 of 2015. Just ask that's on wages to people who left had to be paid till 31st of December 2015. They have not been paid even now. They forgot about the law. And for people, it's 40,000 hryvnias per family. And one more law, 425 amendments were introduced, and there was free staying of the students in dormitories. Nothing has been done. And that's because there's no parliamentary control. I can answer. Thank you. I could add to that list about 10 other things when the law is not executed. As to these two, they were suspended at the initiative of the Cabinet of Ministers because the Ministry of Finance submitted it. And in this sense, parliamentary control, I tell you as the head of the committee, my way of parliamentary control is to have parliamentary hearings, look at the recommendations of the parliamentary hearings. I need to address the Prime Minister and explain why it doesn't work. My way of control is to go there and bring data, but how can the parliament control when even the sectoral vice prime ministers are afraid to go to Donetsk and Lugansk region? I would like to support Mr. Taruta in one thing. A lot has been said, but there are tests, the moments of truth, when either the position is confirmed by the action or not confirmed by the action. The nearest test will be review of the budget for 2017 in the Verkhovna Rada of Ukraine. I do hope that the colleagues who are here, who were saying here and from other things were saying that they are for the rights of IDPs. If the amendments are not introduced, and these are substantiated amendments, if the requirements of European Commission are not taken into account, then by their actions, by voting or non-voting for this budget, they will confirm their position. This will be honest. Thank you. Unfortunately, this is not a press conference, it's panel discussion. We have another discussion in the Romania, the respected guests. Thank you all who were present, and soon we'll continue. Thank you. Let's move to the second panel.
Mustafa, Nayyem во второй панели может тоже остаться.
Mustafa, Nayyem.